The dog wouldn't let anyone near him. Not the doctors. Not the nurses. Not even the paramedics who brought him in. The officer was dying on the gurney, bleeding out fast. The German shepherd stood like a wall of fury, teeth bared, blocking every hand that tried to help. Then a brand new nurse stepped forward and spoke words that shouldn't exist in a hospital. Before you watch full story, comment below from which country are you watching. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories. The dog would not let anyone touch him. Not the doctors, not the nurses, not even the paramedics who brought him in. The German shepherd stood at the edge of the hospital bed like a wall of teeth and fury. His name was Max, and right now, he was the only thing standing between his handler and death. Officer Ryan Mitchell lay on the gurney, blood soaking through the bandages on his chest. The monitor beside him beeped in an angry rhythm. His blood pressure was dropping. His breathing was shallow. Every second counted, but nobody could get close enough to help him. "We need to sedate the dog," Dr. Harris said, his voice tight with frustration. "No way," one of the paramedics shot back. "That's a police K9. You sedate him without proper authorization, and you'll have the whole department down here. Then get authorization. This man is dying." The emergency room erupted into chaos. Staff ran back and forth. Someone called animal control. Someone else called the police station. Security guards stood at a distance, hands on their radios, unsure what to do. Max growled at anyone who came within 6 feet. His eyes were locked on his handler, watching every breath, every movement. And then Sarah Chen walked into the room. She was 23 years old. Fresh out of nursing school. This was her 3rd day on the job. She wore new scrubs that still smelled like the store, and her ID badge was so clean it reflected the overhead lights. She had been restocking supplies in the next room when she heard the commotion. Sarah stopped in the doorway and took in the scene. The dying officer, the aggressive dog, the panicking staff. She did not freeze. She did not run. She simply stood there, watching, thinking. "Move back," Dr. Harris barked at her. "This situation is under control." It clearly was not under control. Sarah could see that. She could also see something else. Something in the way the dog held himself. The way his ears moved. The way his eyes tracked every person in the room but always came back to his handler. Max was not being aggressive. He was being protective. There was a difference. Sarah had grown up around dogs. Her father had been a dog trainer for the military before he retired. She had spent her childhood learning commands, watching behavior, understanding the language that dogs spoke without words. She knew that fear made dogs bite. But loyalty made them guard. "Excuse me," Sarah said quietly. Nobody heard her. The room was too loud. Too frantic. "Excuse me," she said again, louder this time. Dr. Harris turned to her, irritation clear on his face. "Nurse, I told you to step back." "I can help," Sarah said. "Unless you can magically make that dog disappear, I don't see how." Sarah looked at the dog. Max stared back at her. For just a moment, their eyes met. She saw fear in those dark eyes. Fear and desperate determination. "I can try," Sarah said. The head nurse, Margaret, grabbed her arm. "Sarah, no. You're too new for this. Let the professionals handle it." "I am a professional," Sarah said, and gently pulled her arm free. She walked forward slowly. Not directly toward the dog, but at an angle, approaching the bed from the side. Max's growl deepened. His lips pulled back, showing teeth designed to bite and hold. Sarah stopped. She did not look at Max. She looked at Officer Mitchell. His face was pale. His eyes were half closed. The blood kept spreading across his chest. "You've got a good partner," Sarah said softly, talking to the unconscious officer. He's doing his job. Protecting you. That's what he's trained to do. Max's ears swiveled toward her voice. The growling quieted, just a fraction. Sarah took one more step. Max's body tensed. Everyone in the room held their breath. And then Sarah did something that made no sense to anyone watching. She crouched down. She made herself smaller. Less threatening. She turned her body slightly to the side, not facing Max directly. It was body language. Dog language, the language of respect and non-aggression. "Good boy," she said, her voice calm and low. "You're such a good boy. You're taking care of him. I know. I see you." Max's tail twitched. Not a wag, just a tiny movement. Uncertainty. Sarah slowly extended her hand. Not toward Max, but toward the floor between them. Palm down. Non-threatening. "I'm here to help him," she said. "That's all. I'm not going to hurt him. I promise." Max took one step forward. Then another. He sniffed the air. Sarah did not move. She barely breathed. She let the dog make the decision. Max's nose touched her hand. Sarah's fingers moved slowly, gently. She did not grab. She did not pet aggressively. She just let her fingers rest against his fur. Soft, calm, safe. "Good boy," she whispered. "Such a good boy." And then she spoke a phrase that made every person in that room freeze. "Shadow, stand down." It was not Max's name. It was not a normal command. It was a specific phrase, a code word, the kind used by military and police K-9 units. The kind that meant, mission complete, threat neutralized, return to base. Max sat. Immediately, completely, as if someone had flipped a switch. The room went dead silent. Dr. Harris stared at Sarah like she had just performed a magic trick. Margaret's mouth hung open. The paramedics looked at each other in confusion. Sarah stood slowly and looked at Dr. Harris. "You can treat him now," she said simply. The medical team rushed forward. Hands moved quickly. 4 lines were placed. Bandages were changed. Equipment was connected. Max stayed seated beside the bed, watching, but no longer blocking. Sarah stood beside him, one hand resting on his head. "How did you do that?" Margaret asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Sarah did not answer. She was watching Officer Mitchell's monitor. The numbers were stabilizing. He was going to make it. 2 hours later, Officer Mitchell was in surgery. Max was in a holding area, resting but alert. And Sarah was in the hospital administrator's office, facing a room full of questions she did not want to answer. "Miss Chen, the administrator, Mr. Peterson, said carefully. We need to know how you knew that command." Sarah sat with her hands folded in her lap. Her back was straight. Her face was calm. "I grew up around dogs," she said. "That was not a pet command," said Detective Barnes, who had arrived from the police station. "That was a tactical code. Shadow protocols are classified. They're not public knowledge." Sarah met his eyes. "I've been around military dogs," she said. "In what capacity?" Peterson asked. Sarah hesitated. Just for a second. Just long enough for everyone in the room to notice. "My father trained dogs," she said. "For the military. I learned from him." Detective Barnes leaned forward. "What was your father's name?" "Chen. David Chen." Barnes pulled out his phone and made a call. He stepped into the hallway. Sarah could hear his voice, muffled, asking questions. She waited. Margaret sat beside her. "You did a good thing today," the head nurse said quietly. "That officer would have died if you hadn't stepped in." "I just did my job," Sarah said. That was more than your job. That was training. Real training. Sarah did not respond. Barnes came back into the room. His expression had changed. There was respect in his eyes now. And curiosity. David Chen, Barnes said slowly. Retired Master Sergeant, Army K-9 Unit. Served 3 tours overseas, trained over 40 military working dogs. Currently runs a private training facility in Colorado. Sarah nodded once. And you grew up in that facility? Barnes asked. Yes, Sarah said. So you've been around working dogs your entire life? Yes. Peterson cleared his throat. Miss Chen, why didn't you mention this in your job application? Sarah looked at him calmly. Because I applied to be a nurse, she said. Not a dog handler. My medical training is what matters for this job. Not my childhood. But this skill could be valuable, Peterson said. We have police officers come in here sometimes. Military personnel. If something like this happens again. If something like this happens again, Sarah interrupted gently, then I'll help. Just like I did today. But I don't want to be hired because I can talk to dogs. I want to be hired because I'm a good nurse. Margaret smiled. You are a good nurse, she said. The meeting ended with more questions than answers. But Sarah was not in trouble. If anything, she was being praised. Officer Mitchell was stable. Max had been reunited with him in recovery, lying beside his bed like a guardian statue. And Sarah had proven that sometimes the newest person in the room was exactly the person you needed. But the story did not end there. 3 days later, Sarah was working the night shift when a familiar face appeared in the emergency room. Detective Barnes walked in with a folder under his arm. Miss Chen, he said. Do you have a minute? They sat in the break room. Barnes opened the folder and pulled out several photographs. They showed different dogs. Different breeds. All wearing tactical vests. These are active K-9 units in our city, Barnes said. 6 dogs. 6 handlers. All trained in shadow protocols and emergency response. Sarah looked at the photos. She saw strength in those dogs. Purpose. The same look she had seen in Max's eyes. Why are you showing me this? She asked. Because we have a problem, Barnes said. Last month, one of our handlers was injured during a drug raid. His dog, Bruno, attacked the paramedics trying to help him. We had to sedate Bruno. The handler almost died because we couldn't get to him fast enough. Sarah's chest tightened. Is he okay? He survived. Barely. But it made us realize something. We need better protocols. Better training. Not just for the dogs, but for the medical staff who might have to treat their handlers. Barnes pulled out another paper. It was a proposal. A program outline. We want to create a training program, he said. For emergency room staff. Teaching them how to recognize K-9 behavior, how to de-escalate situations, how to work alongside these dogs when their handlers need medical care. Sarah read the proposal. It was detailed. Thorough. Well planned. This is good, she said. You should do this. We want you to help us build it, Barnes said. Sarah looked up, surprised. Me? I'm just a nurse. I've been here less than a week. You're the only person in this hospital who knew what to do, Barnes said. You saved Officer Mitchell's life. Not just with your medical skills, but with your understanding of his partner. That's rare. That's valuable. Sarah set the paper down. I came here to be a nurse, she said quietly. I didn't come here to be special. Barnes studied her face. Why not? He asked. What's wrong with being special? Sarah's hands tightened in her lap. For a moment, she looked younger than her 23 years. Vulnerable. When people know you can do something unusual, she said slowly, they stop seeing you as a person. They see you as a tool. A resource, something to use when they need it. Barnes was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded. I understand that, he said. But let me ask you something. If you had kept quiet that day, if you had stayed in the supply room and let someone else handle it, could you have lived with that? Sarah closed her eyes. She saw Officer Mitchell's face. The blood. The monitor numbers dropping. Max's desperate eyes. No, she whispered. Then you're not doing this to be special, Barnes said. You're doing this because people need help, and you know how to give it. That's not being a tool. That's being a hero. Sarah opened her eyes. I'm not a hero. Officer Mitchell would disagree. 2 weeks later, Sarah stood in a hospital conference room in front of 30 emergency room staff members. Beside her stood Detective Barnes and a K-9 trainer named Marcus. And sitting calmly at the front of the room was Max. Officer Mitchell was still recovering, but he had insisted Max participate in the training. He's the best teacher you could ask for, Mitchell had said from his hospital bed. Show them what he can do. Show them what they need to know. Sarah felt nervous. She was used to treating patients, not teaching classes. But when she looked at the faces in the crowd, she saw the same uncertainty she had felt 3 weeks ago. These were good people who wanted to help but did not know how. She could teach them. Working dogs are not pets, Sarah began, her voice steady. They're professionals. They have a job, and they take that job seriously. When their handler is in danger, their entire focus is protection. They're not trying to be difficult. They're trying to save a life. She demonstrated with Max showed the staff how to approach, how to read body language, how to use voice tone and body position to communicate calm instead of threat. She taught them the difference between aggression and fear, between attack and defense. Marcus explained the technical side. Radio codes, command structures. What dispatch should communicate to hospitals when a K-9 handler was incoming? How to coordinate with the police department, who to call. What to ask. Detective Barnes talked about real cases. Stories of handlers injured in the line of duty. Times when medical delays had caused complications, times when things had gone right because someone understood the dog's behavior. The training lasted 4 hours. By the end, every person in that room felt more confident. More prepared. They practiced with Max, learning how to move around him, how to speak to him, how to let him see they were helping, not hurting. One young doctor, fresh out of residency, raised his hand. What if the dog doesn't respond, he asked. What if we try these techniques and it still won't let us through? Sarah looked at Max. The dog sat perfectly still, ears forward, watching her. Then you remember, Sarah said, that the dog is doing exactly what it was trained to do. Protect. Serve. Stay loyal. And you find another way. You don't give up on the handler, and you don't give up on the dog. You adapt. The room was silent. These dogs, Sarah continued, her voice soft but firm, put their lives on the line every day. They run into danger. They face threats most of us can't imagine. And they do it without question, without hesitation, because they trust their handlers. The least we can do is trust them back. Someone started clapping. Then another person. Then the whole room erupted in applause. Sarah felt her face flush. She did not want applause. She just wanted people to understand. After the training ended, Officer Mitchell appeared in the doorway. He was in a wheelchair, still pale, still healing, but alive. Max's ears perked up immediately. The dog stood and walked to his handler, pressing his head against Mitchell's hand. Mitchell looked at Sarah. Thank you, he said. For him, for me, for all of this. Sarah shook her head. You don't have to thank me. Yes, I do, Mitchell said. Max is my partner. My friend. If you hadn't been there. He trailed off. He did not need to finish the sentence. Sarah crouched down beside Max and scratched behind his ears. The dog leaned into her touch, tail wagging slowly. He's a good boy, she said. The best. Over the next 6 months, Sarah's training program expanded. Other hospitals requested the materials. Police departments from different cities reached out. A national conference invited her to speak. She said no to most of it. She was still just a nurse. She still worked her shifts, treated her patients, lived her quiet life. But she also trained. Once a month, she ran K-9 awareness sessions at the hospital. She kept in touch with Marcus and Detective Barnes. She visited the K-9 training facility and learned new techniques. She stayed updated on protocol changes. And she never forgot why she started. One night, 9 months after Officer Mitchell's incident, Sarah was working in the ER when the call came in. Police officer down. Gunshot wound. K-9 on scene, refusing to let paramedics approach. Sarah's heart jumped into her throat. I'm going, she told Margaret. Sarah, you're not a paramedic. You can't go on scene. Then get me on the radio, Sarah said. Now. Margaret hesitated, then grabbed the radio. This is County General. We have a K-9 specialist on staff. She can talk you through approach protocols. The voice on the other end was stressed, breathing hard. We can't get near him. The dog is. What's the dog's name? Sarah interrupted. What? The dog. What's his name? Thor. His name is Thor. Sarah closed her eyes, thinking. Okay. Listen carefully. Don't approach from the front. Circle around. Keep your body low. Don't make direct eye contact. Speak in a low, calm voice. Tell Thor you're there to help. Use the word help specifically. That's going to work. It's going to help. Now, does Thor's handler have a specific command phrase for medical situations? I don't know. Find out. Call dispatch. Call the K-9 unit. Someone will know. In the meantime, keep talking to Thor. Keep telling him you're there to help his partner. Dogs understand tone even if they don't understand words. Make your voice as calm as possible. For the next 10 minutes, Sarah talked the paramedics through the approach. Step by step. Inch by inch. She heard the fear in their voices slowly transform into focus. She heard Thor's growling through the radio, and then she heard it stop. We're in, the paramedic said, voice shaking with relief. We're treating him. The dog is, he's sitting. He's letting us work. Sarah sat down hard in a chair. Her legs felt weak. Her hands were shaking. Margaret put a hand on her shoulder. You just saved another life, she said. They saved the life, Sarah said. I just helped them understand. The officer survived. His name was Jake Morrison, and 3 weeks later, he came to the hospital with Thor to thank Sarah personally. Thor was calmer now, wearing a vest that read, Police K-9, in bold letters. When he saw Sarah, his tail wagged. He remembers you, Morrison said, surprised. Sarah knelt down and let Thor sniff her hand. I didn't meet him that night, she said. No, but you saved my life. Dogs know. They sense it. Sarah scratched Thor's ears. The dog leaned into her touch, his dark eyes watching her face. She could see the intelligence there, the loyalty, the same fierce devotion she had seen in Max that first night. How are you feeling? Sarah asked Morrison. Alive, thanks to you. Thanks to the paramedics and to Thor. Sarah ran her hand along Thor's back. The dog's muscles were solid under her palm, built for work, for protection. He's the real hero. He kept you safe until help could reach you. Morrison's voice grew thick with emotion. He wouldn't leave my side. Even when the bullets were flying, even when I told him to run, he stayed. That's what these dogs do. They don't abandon their partners. Sarah thought about Max, about how he had stood guard over Officer Mitchell with the same absolute commitment. These dogs didn't understand quitting. They didn't understand giving up. They only understood duty and love, and somehow those two things were the same in their hearts. Morrison smiled. You really don't take credit, do you? I don't need credit, Sarah said. I just need people to be safe. Morrison studied her for a moment. His eyes held the look of someone who had seen too much, survived too much. Detective Barnes told me about you. About your father, about how you grew up. Sarah's hand stilled on Thor's head. He said you could have gone into K-9 training, Morrison continued. Could have followed your father's footsteps, built a career around these dogs. But you chose nursing instead. Sarah stood up slowly. I chose to help people in a different way. Why? Sarah looked at Thor, then at Morrison. She thought about all the nights she had spent in her father's training facility, watching him work with dogs that would go on to save lives. She thought about the handlers who trusted those dogs with everything. She thought about the bond that formed between human and animal, stronger than steel, deeper than words. Because dogs already have handlers, she said quietly. Good handlers who love them and train them and keep them safe. But people who are hurt, people who are scared, they need someone too. Someone who sees them as more than just a case or a problem, someone who cares. Morrison's expression softened. You could do both, you know. K-9 training and nursing. I am doing both, Sarah said. Just not the way people expect. Thor nudged her hand with his nose, asking for more attention. Sarah smiled and scratched behind his ears. The dog's tail wagged harder, and for a moment, everything felt simple. Pure. A person and a dog, connected by understanding. My father used to say something, Sarah said, her voice distant with memory. He said that dogs don't care about your past. They don't care about your mistakes or your failures. They only care about who you are right now, in this moment. And if you're honest with them, if you're kind, they'll trust you with their whole heart. Morrison watched her, understanding crossing his face. And you wanted to work with people the same way. Yes, Sarah said. I wanted to see people the way dogs see us. Not for what we've done wrong, but for what we can still become. A year after Officer Mitchell's incident, Sarah received a letter. It was from the National Police Dog Foundation. They wanted to give her an award for her work in K-9 medical collaboration. They wanted her to speak at their annual conference. They wanted to feature her story in their magazine. Sarah read the letter twice, then folded it carefully and put it in a drawer. Margaret found her in the break room an hour later. I heard about the award, Margaret said. Are you going to accept? Sarah sipped her coffee. I don't think so. Why not? You deserve recognition. Recognition changes things, Sarah said. People start treating you differently. They have expectations. I just want to do my job. Margaret sat down across from her. Sarah, you're 24 years old, and you've already changed how this entire hospital handles K-9 emergencies. You've trained hundreds of medical professionals. You've saved lives in ways most nurses never will. That's not just doing your job. That's making a difference. Sarah looked down at her coffee. I grew up watching my father train dogs, she said quietly. He was amazing at it. Everyone respected him. Everyone wanted his expertise. But after a while, that's all he was to people. The dog guy. They didn't see him. They saw what he could do for them. And you're afraid that's what will happen to you? I know that's what will happen to me, Sarah said. It already is. People call me the canine nurse. The dog whisperer. They see that before they see anything else. Margaret was quiet for a moment. What do you want them to see? Sarah looked up. I want them to see a nurse who cares about her patients. All of them, whether they have 4 legs or 2. I want them to see someone who shows up, does the work, and goes home. Nothing special, just, good. Margaret smiled. You know that's not possible, right? You are special. And hiding it doesn't make it go away. I'm not hiding it. I'm just not advertising it. There's a difference between advertising and accepting, Margaret said. You can accept who you are without making it your whole identity. Sarah did not respond. 2 weeks later, she accepted the award. But she did it on her terms. She attended the conference, gave a short speech, and spent most of her time in the audience, learning from other speakers. She did not do interviews. She did not pose for magazine photos. She accepted the plaque, thanked the foundation, and went back to work. But something had changed. Sarah realized that Margaret was right. She could be a great nurse and use her unique skills. She did not have to choose. She did not have to hide. She started volunteering at her father's training facility on weekends. She worked with young dogs, teaching them basic commands, watching them grow and learn. It reminded her why she loved this work. Not because it made her special, but because it connected her to something bigger than herself. One Saturday, a young handler brought in a new dog for training. The handler was nervous, clearly new to the job. The dog was energetic, unfocused, still learning. I don't know if I can do this, the handler said to Sarah's father. I'm not good with dogs. Not like you are. Sarah's father looked at her, then back at the handler. Nobody's born good with dogs, he said. You learn. You practice. You fail. You try again. My daughter over there. He pointed at Sarah. She failed 100 times before she got it right. The handler looked at Sarah, surprised. Sarah smiled. It's true, she said. I used to be terrified of big dogs. I thought they were too strong, too unpredictable. But my dad taught me something important. He taught me that fear isn't weakness. Fear is information. It tells you to be careful, to be smart, to respect the power of what you're working with. She walked over and took the leash from the handler. The dog immediately pulled, trying to go in 3 directions at once. See, the handler said. I can't control him. You're not supposed to control him, Sarah said. You're supposed to partner with him. Big difference. She worked with the dog for 10 minutes. She did not yank the leash. She did not yell commands. She just moved calmly, consistently, rewarding good behavior and redirecting bad behavior. Slowly, the dog started to focus. Started to walk beside her instead of pulling ahead. The handler watched in amazement. How did you do that? Practice, Sarah said. Patience, and remembering that he's not trying to be difficult. He's just trying to understand what you want. The handler took the leash back. The dog immediately started pulling again. Sarah laughed. It's going to take time. But you'll get there. I promise. As she drove home that evening, Sarah thought about her journey. From scared kid to confident trainer to nursing student to ER nurse to K9 specialist. None of it had been planned. All of it had been necessary. She thought about Officer Mitchell, alive because she spoke a code she learned as a child. She thought about Thor's handler, saved because she talked paramedics through their fear. She thought about all the dogs she had worked with, all the handlers she had trained, all the lives that had been touched by something she used to think she needed to hide. Margaret had been right. She was special. But not because of what she could do. Because of why she did it. Sarah pulled into her apartment parking lot and sat in the car for a moment. Tomorrow she would go back to the hospital. She would treat patients, run codes, save lives in the ordinary ways that nurses saved lives every day. And if a K9 came in with an injured handler, she would be ready. Not because she was the K9 nurse. Not because she was the dog whisperer. But because she was Sarah Chen. And she had learned a long time ago that the best way to honor a gift was to use it. She grabbed her bag and walked to her door. Inside, her phone buzzed. A text from Detective Barnes. New K9 unit starting next month. Want to help with medical protocol training? Sarah smiled and typed back, yes. Because some things were worth saying yes to. Some skills were worth sharing. Some lives were worth saving. And some people were meant to stand at the intersection of different worlds, building bridges so others could cross safely. Sarah was one of those people. And she was finally okay with that. That night, as she prepared for bed, Sarah thought about the path that had brought her here. She remembered being 7 years old, watching her father work with a young Belgian Malinois who was afraid of loud noises. The dog would shake and hide whenever a car backfired or a door slammed. But her father never gave up. Day after day, he worked with patience and love, teaching the dog that courage wasn't the absence of fear, but the ability to move forward despite it. That dog eventually became one of the top narcotics detection K9s in the country. Sarah had watched the graduation ceremony, seen the handler receive his partner, seen the pride in her father's eyes. But what stuck with her most was what her father had said that night. Every living thing has potential, he had told her. Dogs, people, everyone. But potential means nothing if nobody believes in it. If nobody takes the time to nurture it. That's what we do, Sarah. We believe in things before they believe in themselves. Sarah looked at her nursing certification hanging on the wall. Beside it was a photograph of her father with Max, the German shepherd who had started this whole journey. Her father had passed away 2 years ago, peacefully in his sleep, surrounded by the dogs he had spent his life training. Sarah had been finishing nursing school when she got the call. She had almost quit that day. Almost decided that nursing was too hard, too painful, too full of loss. But then she remembered her father's words. Believe in things before they believe in themselves. So she finished. She graduated. She applied to hospitals. And she chose to use her gifts, all of them, even the ones that made her different. The rookie nurse who spoke the code had become something more. Not louder. Not flashier. Just more herself. More honest about what she carried and why it mattered. And in a world that needed heroes who looked like ordinary people doing extraordinary things, that was exactly who she was meant to be. The next morning, Sarah woke to another message. This one was from Officer Mitchell. Max wants to visit you. Says he misses his favorite nurse. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. Sarah typed back immediately, I'll be there. Because some friendships were worth keeping. Some connections, once made, lasted forever. And some dogs, once they decided you were family, never forgot. When 2 p.m. came the next day, Sarah stood in the hospital lobby waiting. She saw Mitchell walking through the doors with Max at his side. The German shepherd's ears perked up the moment he spotted her. His tail began wagging with such force that his whole back end moved with it. Max pulled at the leash, eager to reach her. Mitchell laughed and let him go. The dog bounded across the lobby, his nails clicking on the tile floor. He stopped right in front of Sarah and sat immediately, perfectly behaved, but his tail never stopped moving. Sarah knelt down and wrapped her arms around Max's neck. The dog pressed against her, making a sound that was half whine, half joy. People in the lobby stopped to watch, smiling at the reunion. He's been excited all morning, Mitchell said, walking up to them. Kept going to the door, like he knew where we were going. Sarah looked into Max's eyes. Those same eyes that had been filled with fear and protection that first night now shone with recognition and trust. She scratched behind his ears exactly the way he liked. Good boy, she whispered. Such a good boy. And in that moment, Sarah understood something profound. She had saved Max's handler that night. But Max had saved something in her too. He had shown her that hiding her gifts helped no one. That being different was not something to fear, but something to embrace. She was a nurse. She was a K-9 specialist. She was her father's daughter. She was all of these things, and that was okay. Max licked her face, and Sarah laughed. A real laugh, free and genuine. Some stories didn't end. They just kept growing, one connection at a time, one life at a time, one moment of understanding at a time. This was hers. And she was ready for whatever came next.